Welcome to your deep dive into the world of AI. From the sources you gave us, it seems like you're really interested in this topic, and we've got some really cool stuff to go through. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into this blog post from stokigt.nu. The author, Mike, actually chats with his AI partner about AI. It's a really unique format, almost like you're eavesdropping on a conversation from the future.
Yeah, it really is. And, one thing that really stands out, both from this conversation and some of the other things you shared with us, is just how quickly this technology is evolving. There's this huge potential for it to really change things for the better. But there are also some pretty serious questions about, how we make sure that it's developed responsibly.
Absolutely. So Mike starts off by asking his AI partner a really basic question. What exactly is artificial intelligence? Seems simple enough, but it's kind of a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all have these ideas about AI from science fiction, but in reality, it's a lot more complicated. At its core, AI is all about creating machines that can do things that usually require human intelligence, like, learning, problem solving, making decisions.
Right. And Mike's AI partner talks about how AI can look at huge amounts of data way faster than a human ever could. I was thinking about that in terms of like your work in marketing, how AI could be used to look at data about customers and create these really personalized ad campaigns, something that would be pretty much impossible to do manually.
Yeah, that's a great example. It really shows how AI is already being used in so many different fields. Everything from healthcare to finance, transportation. It's not just this futuristic idea anymore. It's already having a big impact on the world around us.
Absolutely. But I think before we go too far, it's worth taking a step back and looking at the history of AI. This idea of creating artificial intelligence is not exactly new, is it?
No, not at all. You might be surprised to learn that the roots of AI actually go all the way back to the 1950s, with people like Alan Turing, who came up with the Turing Test, a way of figuring out if a machine can act intelligently in a way that's indistinguishable from a human.
Wow, so this is something people have been thinking about for decades. Aside from the cool factor of machines that can think like us, what are some of the other upsides to AI?
Well, one of the most exciting things about AI is its potential to help us solve some of the world's biggest problems. I mean, think about things like developing new drugs, modeling climate change, or even just, making our day-to-day lives more efficient.
Mike's AI partner mentions this AI called AlphaFold, which can predict the structure of proteins. What does that even mean for us normal folks?
It's really groundbreaking stuff. Predicting protein structures is super important for developing new drugs. It's like having a blueprint that shows you how to design drugs that can target specific diseases. And AI can do this much faster and more accurately than traditional methods. So it could lead to new drugs being developed more quickly. Maybe even cures for diseases that are currently incurable.
That's amazing. It sounds like we're on the verge of some really incredible breakthroughs thanks to AI. But like any powerful technology, I'm sure there are some downsides too, right?
Of course. Even though AI has this incredible potential, we need to be aware of its limitations and the risks. One concern that comes up a lot is its impact on jobs. As AI gets more and more advanced, it's going to be able to automate tasks that are currently done by humans.
I can see why people would be worried about that. I mean, not everyone who loses their job because of AI is going to become an AI programmer, right?
Exactly. It's a really complex issue, and there are no easy answers. But it's important to remember that AI also creates new jobs and opportunities. It's not just about replacing humans. It's about figuring out ways for humans and AI to work together effectively.
Right. It's about adapting, both for individuals and society as a whole. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's more about finding that right balance and making sure AI is used responsibly.
Exactly. We need to have these open and honest conversations about how AI could potentially impact every aspect of our lives, from the economy and privacy to ethics.
Speaking of ethics, Mike also talked about how AI could be misused, especially on the dark web. That's like a whole other world, a hidden part of the internet where things can get a little shady.
It is, and it really highlights how crucial it is to think about the ethical side of any technology, especially something as powerful as AI.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits of AI, the challenges, and the importance of ethics. But now for the big question that's on everyone's mind. Is AI eventually going to take over the world?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's definitely a popular topic in science fiction, but the reality is a bit more complex.
So should we be building bunkers and stocking up on canned food, or are we safe for now?
I think you can hold off on the bunker for now. While AI is advancing rapidly, it's important to remember that the systems we have today are still just tools. They're designed to do specific tasks. And they don't have the kind of general intelligence or self-awareness that you'd need for a Hollywood-style takeover.
Okay, so no rogue AI overlords just yet. But are there any real risks that we should be concerned about?
The real risks, as we've already touched on, are more about how humans use AI. We need to be incredibly careful about unintended consequences, misuse, and the concentration of power. It's not just about building smart machines, it's about building them responsibly and ethically.
That's a great point. It's not about being afraid of the technology itself. It's about understanding its potential and making sure it's used for good.
Exactly. And that requires a collective effort from researchers, developers, policymakers, and society as a whole. We need to have these open and honest discussions about the future we want to create with AI. And we need to be proactive in shaping that future responsibly.
Well said. You know, I know you're a big sci-fi fan. Have you seen any movies that really get this right? Movies that show both the potential and the pitfalls of AI in a realistic way?
You know, there are a few that come to mind. One that I always find myself thinking about is Her. It explores the emotional complexities of a relationship between a human and an AI. It's not focused on robots taking over the world, but it looks at these subtle ways that AI could affect our relationships and even our sense of self.
That's fascinating. I'm going to have to check that one out. I think it's interesting how fiction can help us grapple with these complex ideas and explore what the future might hold.
It really can. Science fiction often acts as a mirror, reflecting our hopes and fears about technology and how it might change humanity.
I love that analogy. We've covered a lot of ground already, but we've only scratched the surface of this topic. Mike and his AI partner actually go into a lot of detail about different types of AI models. It gets a bit technical, but I think you'll find it pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready to dive deeper.
Great. Well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and explore the world of AI models, from rule-based systems to the incredible complexities of deep learning.
So those different types of AI models, tell me more.
Okay, so Mike's AI partner actually explains it in a way that even I could get my head around. It's kind of like thinking about the different ways people learn, like some people, they learn best by following really clear instructions, step by step. That's kind of like rule-based AI systems.
Hmm.
They're really good at tasks that are what I've defined, like filtering out spam from your inbox.
Right, like when you follow a recipe. If you
Yeah.
follow all the steps in order, you know what you're going to get.
Exactly. But then you've got people who learn better by watching and experimenting, figuring things out through trial and error. That's more like machine learning models. They don't rely on a strict set of rules. They learn from data.
Interesting. So instead of giving them specific instructions, we just feed them tons of data, and they figure out the patterns and connections on their own.
Exactly. It's like showing someone thousands of pictures of cats and dogs. Eventually they can tell the difference without you ever having to explain what makes a cat, and a dog, a dog.
Oh, so that's how things like movie recommendations work. The AI looks at what you've watched before, and then based on that, it can suggest movies you might like.
You got it. And then there's deep learning, which is like machine learning, but on a whole other level. It uses these super complex neural networks, which, by the way, are inspired by the human brain. They can do things like image recognition, understand and process language. They can even write poetry.
Whoa, so deep learning is where things get really mind-blowing. It's like the AI is actually starting to understand the world around it, not just recognizing patterns, but actually making sense of them.
Exactly. The possibilities are pretty incredible when you think about it. But with all this talk about AI and how quickly it's evolving, there's something I've been wondering about. In the blog post, Mike touches on how AI might work for institutions like the police or banks. I mean, I can see how it could be really useful, but it's also kind of scary, isn't it?
Definitely. AI could totally revolutionize things like law enforcement and finance, making things more efficient, more accurate. Imagine an AI that could look at crime data and predict where crimes are most likely to happen, or one that could catch fraudulent financial transactions in real time. It would be like having an army of detectives working around the clock.
That's pretty wild. It's like those crime shows where they zoom in on a map and pinpoint exactly where the next crime is going to happen. But seriously, that kind of predictive power, it's amazing, but also kind of unsettling, right?
Yeah, it is. We can't forget that with any technology, especially something as powerful as AI, there's always the possibility of it being misused. And when we're talking about things like law enforcement and finance, where decisions can have a huge impact on people's lives, we have to be incredibly careful about how AI is used.
Right. It's not just about unintended consequences. The stakes are even higher in these situations.
Exactly. We need to go beyond just making sure the technology works properly. We have to make sure it's used ethically and responsibly. Things like transparency, accountability, and oversight are so important. We need to be sure that AI isn't used in ways that could harm people or violate their rights.
Because if an AI system is making decisions about loans or parole, we need to make sure those decisions are fair.
Exactly. And that brings up another really important point. The data that AI systems are trained on. If the data itself is biased, the AI will just continue those biases in its decision-making.
It's like that saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you train an AI on biased data, you're going to get biased results.
You got it. So it's not just about the technology. It's about the human decisions behind how it's developed and used. We need to be really thoughtful about the data we use, the algorithms we create, and the safeguards we put in place to make sure that AI benefits society as a whole.
So we've talked about AI in general and some specific uses in healthcare, science, law enforcement, and finance. But Mike also mentions physical AI assistants. Is this like those robot butlers I always see in movies?
Not quite at the butler stage yet, but getting closer. Physical AI assistants are basically AI-powered devices that can interact with the real world in a much more sophisticated way than, say, a voice assistant like Alexa.
So actual robots that can do stuff, not just answer questions or play music.
Exactly. Imagine a robot that can understand what you're saying, but also move around your house, handle objects, and do complicated tasks, like folding laundry or cooking dinner. That's the kind of future that these physical AI assistants are pointing towards.
Wow, that would be amazing. But also kind of scary. Like, what happens when the robot accidentally spills spaghetti sauce all over the rug?
Well, they're still working on those fine motor skills. But you bring up a good point. Any new technology comes with its own challenges and potential downsides. With these physical AI assistants, there are worries about safety, reliability, and of course the impact on jobs.
Seems like that's a common thread, that worry about job displacement.
It is. And it's a valid concern. If robots can do a lot of the jobs that humans do now, what happens to all those people? It's a complex issue, no easy answers. But it's something we need to be talking about as we continue to develop and integrate AI into our lives.
Absolutely. It's clear that AI is already changing things in big ways. And that impact is only going to grow. It's both exciting and a little bit daunting.
It is. But I think the most important thing is to approach AI development with a sense of responsibility, making sure it aligns with our values and serves humanity.
I agree. I think that's a good point to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but before we move on, I'm curious, what has stood out to you the most from our conversation so far?
That's a tough one. So much to think about. I think what's really resonating with me is just how important the ethical considerations are when it comes to AI development. It's not enough to create powerful technology. We need to be really thoughtful about how it's used and what impact it has on society.
Right. And it's a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of, not just the tech experts and politicians. It affects all of us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got one more part of Mike's blog post to dig into, and it really gets to the heart of something we've been circling around this whole time, the relationship between humans and AI.
I'm all ears.
Me too. Let's jump back in.
All right, so we're back and ready to talk about this relationship between humans and AI. It feels like we've been kind of dancing around this idea all day, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a recurring theme for sure. I mean, we've talked about AI solving problems, automating things, even like physically interacting with the world. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to how it affects us as humans. Exactly. Mike really gets into this in his blog post. He looks at different perspectives on what AI means for humanity. Some people, they see AI as this threat, something to be afraid of, while others see it as an opportunity, a way to enhance what we can do and make our lives better.
Yeah, I get both sides. I mean, it's natural to be a little worried about something that could change so many things about how we live. But at the same time, it's exciting to imagine how AI could help us overcome challenges and achieve things that we never could have before.
It's like we're standing on the edge of this uncharted territory. There's that sense of wonder and possibility, but also a healthy dose of caution. And I think that's where the whole conversation about ethics comes into play. It's not just about what AI can do, but about what should do.
For sure. We need to be talking about what values we want to build into these AI systems, what limits we need to set, and how we can make sure it's used for good.
Right, because at the end of the day, we're the ones shaping this technology. It's not like some outside force dictating our future. AI is a tool, and it's up to us to use it responsibly.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a pretty powerful idea. It means we have a choice in how AI develops and how it affects the world. We're not just sitting back and watching things happen. We're actively involved in shaping this story as it unfolds.
I like that perspective. It goes back to what we talked about before, about how important it is to be informed and engaged in this conversation. This isn't just something for tech experts to worry about. It affects everyone.
Absolutely. We all have a responsibility to understand AI, to think critically about what it means, and to make our voices heard. The future of AI isn't set in stone.
Yeah.
The choices we make today are what will shape it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. It's been quite a journey. From the history of AI to its potential impact on society, to the, frankly, mind-blowing complexities of deep learning.
It really has. And I have to say, I really enjoyed reading Mike's blog post. Those conversations he has with his AI partner were so unique. And it was such an engaging way to learn about this topic. It really brought these concepts to life.
Definitely. And for those of you listening, I hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of AI, its potential, the challenges, and the important questions we need to be thinking about, especially as this technology continues to develop.
Remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to learn and explore about AI. And the choices we make today are the choices that will determine how this technology impacts humanity.
That's a great point to end on. So stay curious, keep exploring, and be a part of shaping the future of AI. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.